Hello, beautiful bookworms, and welcome back to Squirrel's Bookshelf for part 3 of book collecting for beginners. I'm Jess, head squirrel. In part 1, I discussed what book collecting actually is beyond the mere accumulation of books. Then in part 2, I discussed options for one of the more popular forms of book collecting, first editions. I also discussed how to consider the condition of a book in your collection. But on this third and final part, we're getting into the useful bits and bobs. Now that I have invited you into the world of book collecting and touched on just some of the possibilities that lie within, where do you actually start? Well, I'm about to give you a rundown on exactly that, culminating with my ultimate book collecting secret weapon. A note before I continue, I am basing all of my advice in this video on my experience buying books in the US and the UK, as those are the only two countries in which I have lived. So some of these tips may or may not be useful in other countries, and for that I apologize. But I do think there will be something of use here even for my bookworms elsewhere. So to start, secondhand bookstores, thrift stores, charity shops, really great place to start treasure hunting. I find that antique stores tend to overprice, well, everything nowadays, but especially books. I hate to break it to them, but just because something's old doesn't necessarily mean it's worth anything. So the secondhand and charity shops are really a better bet if you want to keep your prices low. You can potentially even find communities that will swap and trade books if money is really tight. And heck, why not let your friend or family member know which book you would like for the next gift-giving holiday the next time they ask. The biggest marketplace, though, of course, is online. Some charity shops such as Oxfam or Goodwill keep an online shop of their inventory, but also Facebook Marketplace is the thrift store of the internet if you want to potentially find some really great deals in your area, or similar sorts of apps like Craigslist, Gumtree, Nextdoor, but that type of thing. But I'm also part of a few book selling and trading groups on Facebook, so I find those useful as well. Otherwise, eBay or ABE Books, are fantastic marketplaces if you're after a specific edition. While Amazon is, well, Amazon, I find it a much harder platform for collecting, as their whole system isn't really well designed for tracking down specific editions very easily, which is ironic seeing as it started as a book selling platform, but I digress. Etsy is another place that's a little less obvious, but books are often sold there under the umbrella of vintage items, and so the prices can be a bit hit and miss. Like I mentioned with antique stores, a lot of Etsy sellers might believe that the age of a book adds inherent value when it doesn't a lot of the time. That said, I've also found some really great deals on Etsy. If you're in the States, one of my favorite online secondhand book retailers is Thriftbooks. Although I did have the odd occasion where a book showed up not matching the edition that was listed, they have great customer service and they took care of my order right away. If you do use Thriftbooks, definitely join their reward program where you can earn credit towards free books. And keep in mind that you can generally get free shipping for orders over $15. In the UK, I've developed a similar relationship to the company World of Books, although again, sometimes their listings aren't exactly accurate, but I've had good experience with their customer service as well. World of Books and Thriftbooks do sell through the major marketplaces like Amazon, eBay, etc., but you'll find their cheapest prices generally on their own websites, so thriftbooks.com and worldofbooks.com. And for World of Books, they even offer discounts on multi-book purchases, such as under their rare books category. If you buy 2 or more books, you get 15% off those books. This brings me to a general note. Whenever you are looking at a book being sold by a third-party seller on one of the major marketplaces, often independent bookstores, see if you can contact the stores and order directly. Not only do they not lose out on the seller fees from those major websites, but sometimes if you ask kindly, they may share that courtesy with you and offer a slight discount for a direct sale as well. Do not ask sellers through Amazon though. They have tight regulations against such things, given that they lose out on the commission. And sellers can get in big trouble, even having their entire shop taken down if they try to go around their system. But if you're looking at AbeBooks or eBay or something else, see if the shop has listed their contact details, or you can try a quick Google search of their business name. If you do Google, One personal request. Double check that you've got the right business name. My shop in particular has a very similar name to another much newer shop, and we get people contacting us constantly thinking that we're that shop and making complaints. To the point where I've got the other shop's phone number on a sticky note on my computer. I'm pretty sure we come up first on the Google search, and that's why that happens. Don't do that. And finally, as promised, my secret weapon of book collecting. Are you ready? There is a website called Bookfinder.com. There are a few others like it, but Bookfinder.com is a search engine for books that covers all major book-selling marketplaces as well as some independent bookshops' websites worldwide. All of their online stock. Bookfinder can be used in one of two ways, but before we get to that, first select your desired language, your destination country, and your currency from the drop-down options. The first way of searching is by typing in an ISBN, or International Standard Book Number, if the book has one. If you don't know already, an ISBN is a 10 or 13-digit number that is intended to uniquely identify each separate edition and variation of a publication, with the exception of reprints within an edition. I say intended as sometimes ISBNs get improperly reused, but most of the time it's a pretty good tool. ISBNs were implemented starting in 1970, but throughout the later half of the 1960s, some publishers began using a precursor SBN, which has only 9 digits. The ISBN field in Bookfinder only works with either 10 or 13-digit numbers, so if you come across an SBN with only 9 digits, simply add a 0 at the beginning. If a book has both a 10-digit and 13-digit option, either will work. Then simply click Find Book, and Bookfinder will bring up the results with the book's details at the top. One thing to pay attention to is whether or not the prices shown include shipping. Either way, there will be a link to switch you to the opposite viewing option just underneath the book details. Listings for that book will then appear below, with new books in the left-hand column and used books in the right-hand column. If you don't want to see both new and used options, you can untick one of the boxes on the search page before clicking Find Book. But the list will show you which website it's on, which country it's coming from, and any available descriptions of the book conditions, all in one place. This will search Amazon, AbeBooks, eBay, Alibris, Biblio, Blackwell's, Book Depository, and many more. If you see a copy that looks good, click on either the selling website or the price to be directed to that listing. Note that any of the Amazon websites will only take you to the overall book listing, not the specific copy, so you'll have to scan the list of copies being sold and find the one you want. For AbeBooks, you'll be directed to the shopping basket on that website, where the copy you've clicked will automatically be added and ready to check out. Everywhere else, as far as I can recall at this moment, will simply direct you to the exact listing for that exact copy, but it's up to you from there to add the book to your basket and check out. The second way of using Bookfinder for pre-1965 publications and any other book without an ISBN is to type in the book's details. The author's name, the title, the publisher, and the publication year are the main fields I use, although I also find the keyword box very helpful at times, especially for things like publishers' libraries, like the Modern Library, Everyman's Library, etc., or something specific to the edition that isn't directly in the title, an anniversary or facsimile edition perhaps. But before I show you some examples of how I use this, let me briefly run through some other features available. I've already mentioned you can choose to hide either new or used books. I always leave both on personally. Then there are some tick boxes. I've literally never used the no POD or no ISBN tick boxes. I have tried the first edition and signed boxes though, but what I've found is you will probably get more fruitful search results by using the keyword box and publication details than by clicking these boxes. So instead of ticking signed, type signed into the keyword box. Instead of ticking first edition, enter the publisher's name and the year of initial publication as the maximum date range. You may then still need to parse through the results with a closer inspection, but through experience, I've simply found this works better. The reason for this is because this site is compiling listings from different platforms, the format of each listing may vary, and I'm not confident that these tick boxes pick up on the different ways of listing book details as well. Also, in relation to the first edition box, be wary of the fact that some sellers may be listing a book inaccurately. always take a close look at the description and look for photographs of the publication details within the copy's listing. Or if no photos are provided, try reaching out to the seller. As for the binding options, this can, again, sometimes play up with different selling platforms' listing formats, so I typically leave this on any and then scan through the results, which will list hardcover versus softcover, but you're welcome to try them out yourself. And finally, if you have set yourself a budget and really want to avoid temptation, type in your maximum price in the right-hand box next to price. Just the number, as you will already have selected the currency above. But now, some tips and examples of how I personally use this tool. One huge thing to note is that Bookfinder is not like Google and will not autocorrect any misspellings or typos. Bookfinder's one downfall is it sometimes searches a bit too literally. So here's a few tips on how to get the most out of this search engine. Number 1, make sure you spell everything exactly correctly. The only exception is words including accented letters from non-English languages. Sometimes these will be successful if you merely type in the equivalent non-accented letter. Sometimes not though. When in doubt, try it both ways. Number 2. The ISBN function is great if you're looking for a book with an ISBN, but in some cases, for various reasons, a bookseller's listing may not include the ISBN number. This often particularly has to do with working around Amazon's very broken system for secondhand books, so one thing to sometimes try after you've searched an ISBN is to click the title in the top section of the page if it allows you, which will then change your search into a search by title rather than a search by ISBN. You may sometimes catch sneaky listings that were left out this way. Number 3. When typing in your book details, be careful with abbreviations and anything that could potentially be written in multiple ways, such as the word "and" versus the ampersand symbol. Again, Bookfinder searches very literally, not across a group of words, but the words individually. If possible, simply leave these out so you can catch all listings, as different booksellers may list their books using these variations. Same goes for a specific volume within a set. If you're after, say, volume 2, this could be listed as VOL or volume, as the Arabic number 2, the Roman numeral 2, or the word 2. You could try searching with each one of those, or you can leave out the number entirely and simply skim through all the results yourself looking for the correct number, whichever way works best for you. And finally, be as minimally specific as you can. What I mean is, use key bits of the book's details to find the specific edition you're after, while avoiding potential variations as much as possible. I have the benefit of seeing different sellers' ways of listing books on a daily basis, and can anticipate how some may list books differently. But for those less familiar with online searches, I find it best, for example, to only type in the author's last name, particularly if the author's full name includes initials or abbreviations, as these can be written in a number of ways. Also, type the keywords of the title, leaving out the or and to catch listings that may have inexpertly left these out, or, as I mentioned before, used an ampersand symbol instead. Also, generally leave out a subtitle unless the title itself is too vague without it. For the publisher's name field, treat this in a similar fashion. A lot of booksellers use abbreviated forms of publisher names, so this will ensure those are caught as well. Penguin instead of Penguin Books, Putnam instead of G.P. Putnam and Sons, etc. And certainly narrow down a publication date range if you can, but keep in mind the possibility of reprints being outside that range and how that might affect your search. Once you've typed in your minimally specific book details, click Find Book. Instead of taking you directly to a list of options, Bookfinder will generally show you a list of potential search matches, which you can click on individually or click just above where it says View All Matches Combined. There's often a See Also section below with further links. I still haven't figured out the difference between these and the upper matches, to be honest, but they give you more options to look through. So, Bookfinder isn't necessarily the most straightforward thing to use, but it's my secret weapon for a reason. Most of my online book purchases nowadays are a result of a search on Bookfinder. But there are some limitations. It does not search Etsy, as that's not really designed for books, and it doesn't include eBay auction listings, just the buy it now listings. And there are plenty of others that it doesn't catch, but it catches a heck of a lot of them. In a way though, I kind of like that it still requires a bit of effort, because the thrill of the work is part of what makes the treasure hunt fun. If it were too easy to find a book you're after, it would be almost anticlimactic. I hope these videos have helped you to feel welcome in this wonderful bookish world. The community of collectors, in my experience, is largely made up of really kind, enthusiastic people. There are, of course, a few snobs here and there, but frankly, you can just ignore them. Book collecting is something you can do for you and you alone. If you are already a collector or you feel inspired to start, I would love to hear about your collections and passions in the comments below. I didn't actually realize the full extent of how my book collection has developed until I began working on these videos. But now it's getting late, it's getting dark, and I really just want to plop down in my library and have a good old snuggle with all of them. Until my next video, be kind, be curious, and be effective. Part 3! Hello, beautiful bookworms! God, I'm going crazy. Can you tell it's getting late in the day? Now that I have invited you into this world of one of my favorite online secondhand book retailers, ooh, that was a mouthful, and Bookfinder will pull up a list of nearly everywhere with as much or as little specificity. You just type in the details of the book you're after with as much specificity. Apothecary. You just type in the details of the book you're after with as much specificity as you need. I almost had it.